In the endless sprawl of geological time, Earth lay restless, sculpted by molten rock and oceans of storm. Life had emerged in forms strange and simple, surviving by instinct and chance. But in one corner of Africa, 2 million years ago, a lineage of primates began to diverge from the patterns of every creature before them. They carried within their fragile skulls a subtle expansion, folds of neural tissue that promised something new. From these folds came curiosity, from curiosity came tools, and from tools came fire. Fire was not born from humanity. Lightning had carved it from trees, volcanoes had bled it from stone. Wild infernos had danced through savannas long before the first hominin lifted a hand. But for the first time, fire was no longer just a destructive force. It was captured, tamed, and transformed into an ally. Anthropologists trace this turning point to Homo erectus, nearly 1.5 million years ago. Charred bones and scorched earth preserved at ancient campsites suggest that these early humans learned not only to wield fire, but to keep it alive through the night. They guarded embers like sacred treasure, feeding them with dry wood, coaxing flame from ash. Fire became more than warmth. It became continuity. For the first time, the rhythm of day and night shifted. Fire banished the dark. It lengthened waking hours, gathering small bands of humans around its glow. In that circle of light, predators were kept at bay, food was roasted, disease diminished. Fire softened roots and grains, unlocking calories that raw flesh and plant fibers could not release. With it, bodies changed, jaws shrank, stomachs evolved, brains expanded. Fire was not only a tool, it was an accelerant for evolution itself. Archaeological evidence reveals that cooking may have provided the caloric surplus that fueled the extraordinary growth of the human brain. Richard Wrangham's cooking hypothesis suggests that without the mastery of flame, the energy demands of a modern brain could not have been met. Civilization's first foundations, then, were not built from stone or metal, but from firewood crackling in the night. Yet, beyond biology, fire transformed the mind. Around the flames, language deepened. Gestures and sounds became stories. Myths were born from the flicker of shadows cast upon cave walls. Fire allowed memory to leap from the immediate to the timeless, from the survival of the present to the imagination of the future. In that glow, consciousness stretched, probing into realms of possibility no other creature could fathom. It was also the first mirror of duality. Fire could protect, but it could also consume. The same force that warmed could also scorch. The same light that revealed could destroy. This paradox etched itself into human psychology, reverence and fear entwined. Every civilization that followed carried this duality forward. Fire was worshipped as a god, feared as a punishment, celebrated in ritual and myth. Prometheus, in Greek legend, stole it from the heavens to give to humanity, igniting not only the hearth but the very concept of transgression and divine rebellion. In the archaeological record, fire's mastery marks the earliest separation of humans from the rest of nature. Other animals used tools. Chimpanzees cracked nuts, crows bent twigs into hooks. But none had harnessed an elemental force, reshaped by intention, sustained by care. Fire was no passive discovery. It was a covenant with energy itself. From this covenant, the trajectory of civilization began. It is no coincidence that the great leaps of technology echo back to this primal alliance. Metallurgy, the smelting of copper, bronze, and iron, was only possible because humanity had first tamed the flame. Pottery hardened in kilns, bricks fired into permanence, engines driven by combustion. Each a descendant of that first spark held by trembling hands in the deep past. Yet fire also reshaped time itself. Before flame, night was the dominion of predators, and the rhythms of existence followed the arc of the sun. Fire allowed humans to bend those rhythms, to carve hours of reflection and planning from the void of darkness. Around its glow, ancestors could imagine what did not yet exist. They could plan hunts, organize communities, remember the past, and dream of futures. Civilization begins where time is no longer dictated solely by nature, but reshaped by mind. What emerges from this is more than anthropology, it is philosophy. Fire represents the threshold where humanity crossed from being shaped by environment to shaping it in return. In that moment, Earth itself became altered. Ecosystems shifted where fires were maintained. Landscapes changed under controlled burns. Species declined or thrived under human influence. With the taming of fire, the Anthropocene had its silent prologue. Consider what fire reveals in cosmology. Energy harnessed, directed, and made purposeful. At its core, civilization is a story of energy control. Fire was the first step, fossil fuels the second, nuclear fusion perhaps the third. Each stage builds upon the same mystery: how matter, when animated by mind, can change the fate of a planet. In the grand silence of the cosmos, this mastery may be the dividing line between worlds that teem with simple life and worlds that rise in civilization. Astrobiologists speculate that the emergence of intelligent civilizations may be tied to the harnessing of external energy sources. Without such control, intelligence may flicker briefly but cannot endure. In this sense, fire is not merely Earth's story. It is a possible universal threshold, the line between instinct and intention across the galaxy. But mastery does not come without peril. Even in its earliest days, fire escaped containment, devastating forests, consuming shelters, destroying what it once protected. Humanity's relationship with it has always been precarious, balanced between creation and destruction. That balance foreshadows the future of civilization itself, where the very technologies that extend survival also threaten annihilation. The birth of conscious fire, then, was not a single event, but a dawn stretching across millennia. A flicker of embers preserved in caves, a glow reflected in widening eyes, a warmth carried through generations. From it rose the possibility of art, of language, of science, of the city and the satellite. Fire was the first medium of continuity, the bridge between biology and culture, between evolution and civilization. It is here, in the dance of flames on ancient nights, that the story of civilization on planet Earth truly begins. Fire was the first whisper of permanence against the abyss of time, the first sign that intelligence could step outside the flow of instinct and begin to rewrite destiny. Civilization is, in its essence, the long echo of that spark. Long before the modern clock measured seconds, long before telescopes and satellites traced the architecture of the cosmos, humanity first sought to map reality through marks, symbols, and inscriptions. Writing emerged not as an art of mere convenience, but as a revolution in the relationship between consciousness and the universe. It was the moment when fleeting thought became tangible, when memory was no longer solely entrusted to fragile minds, but could stretch across generations, across time itself. Civilization, in its earliest form, began to inscribe itself onto the world. In the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia, nearly 6,000 years ago, scribes pressed reed styluses into soft clay, leaving behind wedge-shaped impressions that would harden under the sun. The cuneiform tablets recorded grain, cattle, and trade, yet these earliest marks were more than bookkeeping. They were humanity's first attempt to make reality legible, to anchor chaos with symbols. Each sign was a bridge between human cognition and the inexorable laws that govern nature. In Egypt, hieroglyphs etched onto tombs and temples encoded not only administration, but ritual and cosmology, intertwining life, death, and the cycles of the heavens into a single narrative tapestry. Writing transformed human thought. Oral memory, fragile and fleeting, now had a companion capable of permanence. Knowledge could accumulate, layer upon layer, extending the reach of civilizations beyond the lifespan of any individual. Astronomical observations, once remembered by song or myth, were inscribed on clay and stone, producing calendars that measured the solstices, the phases of the moon, and the movements of Venus. In this act, humanity began to understand patterns not only of survival, but of the cosmos itself. These early astronomers, whose names are lost to time, were the first to perceive the silent rhythms of celestial bodies. They recognized that the night sky was not random chaos, but a vast mechanism governed by unseen forces. Each tablet, each glyph, became a window into the laws of motion, long before Newton formalized the mathematics that would later explain them. Civilization learned to project memory outward, and in doing so, glimpsed the architecture of the universe. Mathematics emerged alongside writing, another language of abstraction. Number and symbol allowed humans to quantify, to calculate, and to predict. The Babylonians, for instance, developed positional number systems capable of recording the complex cycles of the planets. With geometry, Egyptians constructed pyramids aligned to cardinal directions and the path of Orion's belt. In every measurement, every inscription, there is evidence of an awakening, a recognition that the world could be observed, understood, and in some sense tamed. Yet writing was more than a tool of utility. It was an instrument of philosophy. The earliest myths, once transmitted orally, became codified in script. Creation stories were etched into clay, stone, and papyrus, embedding memory of humanity's place in the universe. These narratives were both practical and existential, teaching survival while also meditating on the why of existence. The written word allowed reflection to escape the bounds of a single mind, creating the first shared consciousness of time and history. Speculatively, writing may represent a profound cognitive leap. By externalizing thought, humans could manipulate ideas independent of immediate experience. This ability to abstract, to model realities beyond perception, is the foundation of scientific inquiry. Writing allowed thought experiments to unfold across generations. The cumulative effect is staggering. Knowledge did not merely persist, it accelerated. What one generation discovered could be built upon by the next, forming an intellectual continuum unprecedented in nature. Astronomical records provide a vivid example of this continuum. Ancient Sumerians observed Jupiter's motion over decades, and later Babylonian astronomers refined these observations, creating ephemerides that predicted planetary positions with remarkable accuracy. Across centuries, data accumulated, often in fragmentary inscriptions, forming proto-scientific databases. This knowledge, encoded in symbols, became the scaffolding upon which later civilizations could reconstruct the sky, eventually enabling the precise mathematics of Kepler and the gravitational insights of Newton. Writing was not merely recording. It was a telescope turned inward, clarifying the universe through layers of memory. The philosophical weight of writing extends further. Each inscription represents a dialogue across time, an awareness that individual existence is finite, yet thought can persist. In this, the written universe is both defiance and meditation. It is the human attempt to impose order on entropy, to shape the intangible into permanence. By creating records, humans began to understand causality, chronology, and consequence on scales unimaginable to any animal that relies solely on instinct or immediate experience. Yet writing, for all its permanence, also reflects fragility. Tablets break, papyrus decays, libraries are burnt. Civilization's memory has always been threatened by time and circumstance. The destruction of Alexandria's library, the lost epics of Mesopotamia, the vanished glyphs of the Indus Valley, each represents a rupture in the continuity of understanding. Even as writing promised permanence, it revealed the precariousness of civilization's accumulated knowledge. The invention of script marks a critical threshold in the trajectory of intelligence. By preserving information beyond the life of any single brain, humans effectively extended consciousness across generations. Knowledge of agriculture, metallurgy, astronomy, and mathematics no longer depended solely on teaching or repetition. It could be codified, analyzed, and refined. Writing transformed humanity from a species of ephemeral memory into a species capable of cultural immortality. In a broader sense, the written universe can be seen as a reflection of cosmic structures themselves. Just as celestial bodies obey mathematical and physical laws, human civilization began to encode its own laws, producing systems of governance, ethics, and ritual. Writing allowed for abstraction on a scale comparable to nature. Laws of motion mirrored by laws of society. The rhythm of seasons mirrored by calendars. The cycles of birth and death mirrored in myth and scripture. Humanity began to perceive patterns not only in stars, but in themselves, and to record those patterns in symbols capable of outlasting a single lifetime. Speculatively, one might imagine writing as the first tool of metacognition, the ability to think about thought itself. By representing ideas externally, humans could analyze and manipulate them without constraint. This externalization is the foundation of science: experimentation, hypothesis, calculation, and reflection. Every modern equation, every model of particle physics, is a distant descendant of those first markings in clay and stone. Writing allowed the mind to escape the limits of biology, to begin shaping civilization not only in response to the world, but according to vision, imagination, and theory. Yet writing also imposed responsibility. With permanence comes accountability, both to the past and to the future. Every inscription carries the weight of truth, interpretation, and consequence. Early scribes, though often anonymous, participated in a dialogue that transcended mortality. In preserving grain records, observing lunar cycles, or recording myth, they were unknowingly architects of the bridge between memory and civilization. This bridge stretches across millennia, linking humans not only to one another, but to the cosmos itself. The sky recorded in Sumerian cuneiform, the seasons mapped by Egyptian hieroglyphs, the patterns of rivers and stars encoded in Indus script. These early inscriptions are the first markers of humanity's attempt to comprehend a universe vast beyond immediate perception. They are evidence that intelligence seeks not only survival, but understanding. The written universe, then, is both instrument and reflection. It is a record of survival, a map of thought, and a mirror of consciousness. By externalizing memory, humans began to shape the trajectory of their species with intentionality. Civilization, once dependent solely on fleeting memory, now possessed permanence. Writing allowed humanity to step beyond the immediate, to contemplate causality, to speculate on the unknown, and to probe the nature of existence itself. In the vast silence of time, these early inscriptions whisper across millennia, echoing in every library, every manuscript, every digital archive we create today. They remind us that civilization is built upon layers of memory, observation, and imagination, each generation adding a new stratum to the written universe. In this continuum, human consciousness becomes not merely an individual phenomenon, but a vessel of collective awareness, a lens through which the cosmos itself begins to narrate its story. In essence, the written universe is the first stage in humanity's ascent from ephemeral thought to enduring civilization. It is the threshold at which memory gains permanence, where observation becomes analysis, and where the mind begins to shape not only survival, but destiny. Through writing, humanity discovered that it could leave traces across time, fragments of consciousness that endure, waiting for generations yet unborn to interpret, refine, and continue the dialogue. And so, the story of civilization continues, written in clay and stone, in papyrus and parchment, in pixels and code. Each mark is both question and answer, both map and mirror, guiding the species from fleeting existence toward an understanding of itself and the universe it inhabits. The written universe is the vessel of continuity, the first scaffold of civilization, and the opening chapter in humanity's ongoing dialogue with time and the cosmos. In the quiet sweep of history, human beings reached a threshold unlike any other species: the creation of cities. From scattered villages emerged concentrations of stone, clay, and wood, dense with the lives, ambitions, and dreams of thousands. These early settlements were more than shelters against the elements. They were living systems, pulsating with energy, interaction, and purpose. Civilization had found its first great vessel, a place where memory, fire, and writing could converge into something larger than the sum of its parts. Mesopotamia, the cradle of the first cities, tells a story of complexity emerging from necessity. The plains between the Tigris and Euphrates nurtured agriculture, but agriculture alone could not sustain communities without coordination. Irrigation canals had to be maintained, surpluses distributed, conflicts resolved. Here, in the earliest urban centers like Uruk, humans became architects not only of buildings, but of society itself. Streets were not laid randomly. They were designed to manage the flow of people, goods, and water. Temples rose at the heart of the city, their stones aligned to the heavens, encoding both spiritual and practical knowledge. Cities became mirrors of the cosmos, miniature universes reflecting order, hierarchy, and rhythm. Anthropologists and archaeologists have studied these early settlements through excavated layers of clay and brick, revealing a striking pattern. Complexity arises naturally as populations grow. Every individual added to the city increases the number of social interactions exponentially. This web of relationships, trade, governance, religion, labor, creates a network that is more than a collection of people. It becomes a system capable of emergent properties. The city is alive, not in the biological sense, but as a self-regulating organism. Streets act as veins, markets as lungs, walls as skin, temples as nervous centers connecting society to its collective belief. Yet complexity carries paradox. Just as biological systems require balance, cities require stability to survive. Too much disorder, and the structure collapses. Too much rigidity, and it cannot adapt. Archaeological evidence suggests that early cities were acutely vulnerable to environmental stress. A drought, a shift in a river's course, or soil exhaustion could unravel networks that had taken centuries to build. The Indus Valley civilization, with its meticulously planned streets and advanced drainage, eventually disappeared, leaving behind a silent imprint of human ingenuity and fragility. Even at the dawn of urban life, the tension between order and chaos was palpable. The emergence of cities transformed the human experience of time and space. For the first time, generations coexisted in a shared architecture. Buildings persisted beyond a single lifetime. Streets remembered the footsteps of countless ancestors. Urban centers allowed specialization. Not every individual needed to hunt or farm. Craftsmen, scribes, and priests emerged, forming layers of knowledge that could now be transmitted, enhanced, and preserved. Civilization began to resemble a neural network. Nodes of expertise connected through communication, trade, and ritual. Knowledge, once ephemeral and oral, found permanence in collective labor. From a scientific perspective, complexity in cities mirrors patterns seen in nature. Systems theory and network analysis suggest that as populations increase, cities naturally evolve into hierarchies and subnetworks to maintain efficiency. Traffic flows, resource distribution, and even social influence obey quantifiable dynamics, often resembling the mathematics of ecosystems or the branching of rivers. Urban complexity is not imposed. It emerges spontaneously when enough interacting agents share limited resources and common goals. In this sense, cities are both natural phenomena and conscious artifacts, a bridge between biological evolution and cultural invention. Religion, art, and governance became intertwined with the urban form. Temples and palaces did more than house authority. They encoded values and beliefs, anchoring communities around shared principles. Hieroglyphs in Egypt, cuneiform in Mesopotamia, and the urban grids of Mohenjo-daro were all expressions of a civilization attempting to reconcile the chaos of life with order, permanence, and meaning. Cities became laboratories for human thought, observation, and experimentation. Each public space, market, or wall carried lessons in coordination, cooperation, and consequence. Yet cities also magnify human paradoxes. They accelerate innovation, but they accelerate conflict. They concentrate knowledge, but they concentrate risk. Epidemiologists now study ancient urban settlements to understand how disease spreads through dense populations. The plague, cholera, and influenza are not modern inventions. They are echoes of complexity, a reminder that with every increase in order, vulnerability also grows. The very systems that allow civilization to flourish, trade, communication, shared infrastructure, also allow collapse to propagate faster and wider. One of the most striking dimensions of cities is their ability to extend human perception beyond the immediate. Urban centers preserve memory not only through writing, but through architecture, monuments, and spatial design. Streets can encode social hierarchies. Public squares can encode ritual and memory. Even the orientation of a temple or palace can reflect cosmic cycles. Archaeologists recognize that cities were often laid out with a profound understanding of celestial phenomena, aligning human activity with the rhythms of the sun, moon, and stars. Civilization was, in effect, translating cosmic order into urban form. Speculatively, one might consider cities as proto-computational systems. Each citizen, artisan, or official operates as a node within a larger network, exchanging information, resources, and influence. Like neurons in a brain, these nodes collectively generate behaviors and patterns not predictable from any single individual. Cities, in their most advanced forms, exhibit emergent intelligence, the spontaneous organization of traffic, markets, social norms, and cultural rhythms. Early urban planners, though unaware of the mathematics of networks, were shaping civilization with the same principles that modern scientists recognize in complex systems theory. This complexity is also a mirror of human cognition. Just as cities are networks of people, culture, and infrastructure, the human brain is a network of neurons, memory, and perception. Both operate through feedback loops, pattern recognition, and adaptive learning. Cities externalize the mind on a grand scale, converting social interaction into tangible form. They are cognitive landscapes, reflections of a human ability to perceive, plan, and project. Civilization, in its urban form, is thought made manifest. Yet this emergence is delicate. Collapse is a constant shadow in the story of urbanization. The fall of Rome, the desertion of Cahokia, the decline of Angkor, each example illustrates how intertwined complexity and fragility remain. Cities thrive when feedback systems function, when agriculture sustains the population, when governance maintains order, when culture fosters cooperation. When these systems falter, complexity unravels, and the lessons encoded in streets, walls, and monuments are buried under time and entropy. Civilization's memory is not guaranteed. It must be maintained, renewed, and understood. In this sense, the first cities represent a critical turning point in human evolution. They demonstrate that intelligence, once freed from the constraints of survival alone, seeks to organize, abstract, and accumulate knowledge on scales far beyond any individual lifespan. The city is a physical manifestation of memory, innovation, and ambition intertwined. Each urban center is a laboratory, a library, and a living organism, a microcosm of civilization itself. The reflective, philosophical dimension of cities is profound. They remind us that intelligence does not exist in isolation. It depends on networks, on shared knowledge, on collective memory and action. Civilization's trajectory is inseparable from the structures it builds, the systems it organizes, and the patterns it encodes. From the mud brick streets of Uruk to the monumental temples of Teotihuacan, The city is both a map of human ingenuity and a mirror of the mind's capacity for abstraction, adaptation, and reflection. Ultimately, cities and complexity illustrate the paradox at the heart of civilization. They are engines of growth, creativity, and insight, yet they magnify vulnerability, risk, and uncertainty. They allow humans to extend their influence over time and space, yet their intricate systems can unravel in a moment. In this tension lies the essence of civilization, a delicate balance between creation and destruction, permanence and impermanence, memory and forgetting. In the urban labyrinth, one can trace the invisible threads of civilization's earliest impulses, the desire to survive, to remember, to understand, to reach beyond the immediate, to shape the environment, and, in turn, be shaped by it. The first cities were not merely settlements. They were experiments in complexity, consciousness, and continuity. They were the stage on which humanity first tested its capacity to orchestrate large-scale cooperation, to encode knowledge, and to grapple with the duality of order and chaos. In the glow of early city fires, under the shadow of monumental walls and temples, humanity glimpsed the possibility of enduring legacy. These settlements were not only centers of trade and administration. They were the crucibles of thought, memory, and civilization itself. The lessons they hold endure, whispered through ruins, etched into artifacts, and encoded in the very blueprint of urban life. Cities are both testament and warning, a reflection of the extraordinary potential of collective intelligence and the fragile beauty of complexity sustained through time. It is in the first cities, amidst the interplay of streets, walls, and human endeavor, that civilization transcends the individual and becomes systemic. They are the first stage in a story that will extend from the flames of early fire to the stars above, tracing the emergence of human consciousness from memory to abstraction, from survival to civilization. Complexity, born in stone and mud, is the crucible in which humanity discovers both its power and its peril, revealing that the rise of civilization is inseparable from the delicate architecture of networks, interaction, and imagination. Across the sweeping plains, the arid deserts, and the fertile river valleys of the ancient world, humanity began to stretch its influence beyond the boundaries of individual settlements. Cities, once isolated, began to whisper to one another across deserts and seas. This was the first echo of a profound truth. Civilization, though rooted in local memory and labor, thrives when it engages with the wider world. Trade, migration, conquest, and diplomacy became the currents through which knowledge, culture, and technology flowed, knitting distant societies into the first networks of human interaction. The Silk Road, threading over 5,000 miles from the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia to the mountains of China, exemplifies the power of such contact. It was not merely a path for silks, spices, and precious metals. It was an artery of thought. Along its winding deserts and mountain passes, artisans exchanged not only material goods, but ideas, weaving techniques, astronomical knowledge, mathematical principles, and medical practices. A merchant in Samarkand might carry a scroll detailing the movements of Jupiter, while a potter in Chang'an discovered new glazing techniques inspired by distant styles. Through this network, civilizations began to accelerate their collective understanding, creating a shared intellectual and cultural universe. Contact between civilizations also magnified awareness of human diversity and possibility. The Egyptian Nile and Mesopotamian Tigris had long nurtured unique urban forms and cosmologies, yet encounters between traders or travelers allowed for cross-pollination. Mathematical systems, scripts, architectural designs, and mythologies migrated across continents, adapting to new contexts while preserving the echoes of their origins. Cities became nodes in a vast, informal network, transmitting knowledge across space and time. Each interaction was a ripple, reshaping not only local culture, but the trajectory of civilization itself. The archaeological record illuminates these exchanges. Artifacts reveal that Harappan beads traveled to Mesopotamia, while Sumerian cylinder seals reached the Indus Valley. Egyptian faience found its way to the Levant. These objects are not mere commodities. They are evidence of communication, of civilizations observing and learning from one another. Trade catalyzed experimentation and adaptation, forcing societies to reconcile local practices with foreign ideas. It is here, in the liminal space between familiarity and novelty, that innovation thrives. Beyond material culture, contact allowed for the transmission of abstract thought. The spread of numeral systems, early astronomy, and calendrical knowledge exemplifies the profound cognitive impact of intercultural exchange. The concept of zero, emerging in ancient India, would later traverse continents, fundamentally altering mathematics and astronomy. Similarly, the transmission of papyrus and later paper revolutionized record-keeping, making possible the accumulation of knowledge that would underpin later civilizations. Contact thus became a multiplier of memory, extending the reach of human intellect far beyond isolated settlements. Yet the interactions of civilizations were not without tension. Expansion and trade brought encounters with difference, often provoking conflict as well as collaboration. Early diplomacy, treaties, and alliances reveal that humans recognize the need to regulate contact to balance mutual benefit against rivalry. Warfare, as destructive as it was, also forced adaptation, technological innovation, and the codification of strategy. In this crucible, civilizations honed the skills that would allow them to survive in a world of increasing complexity. From a scientific perspective, networks of human contact display emergent properties strikingly similar to other complex systems. Just as neurons in a brain or species in an ecosystem exchange information and resources, civilizations evolved patterns of interaction that enhanced resilience and adaptability. Cultural innovations that spread widely had a higher probability of persistence, while isolated practices risked extinction. Contact, in effect, acted as a selective pressure, favoring knowledge that could traverse space, survive adaptation, and integrate into new contexts. Civilization, then, is not merely local. It is systemic, a distributed intelligence across geographies and generations. The philosophical implications of this connectivity are profound. By linking distant cultures, humanity began to perceive itself as part of a broader, shared experiment. Civilizations could recognize common patterns in agriculture, governance, law, and ritual. They could compare cosmologies, reflecting upon the nature of the heavens and their own place within it. The universe, once experienced as immediate and local, began to be understood as a shared canvas, observed through multiple lenses across time and space. Knowledge ceased to be a personal or isolated phenomenon. It became collective, diffused, and cumulative. Speculatively, one might consider that contact between civilizations mirrors processes seen in biological evolution. Just as genetic exchange introduces variability and adaptive potential, the exchange of ideas, technologies, and cultural practices introduces diversity that strengthens the resilience of societies. Hybridization of thought allows civilizations to explore new trajectories, to invent, adapt, and persist. In this sense, the interconnected world of ancient civilizations anticipates the global networks of knowledge and technology that define modernity. Trade routes and migratory paths were not only conduits of practical knowledge, but also of myth and philosophy. The stories of creation, morality, and the cosmos traveled as readily as spices and silk. Sumerian epics informed the narratives of neighboring cultures, while Zoroastrian and Vedic cosmologies intersected, influencing metaphysical thought across continents. Through these exchanges, civilizations began to grapple collectively with profound questions. What is the origin of the universe? What is the nature of human destiny? What patterns govern the heavens and life upon the earth? Contact allowed these questions to transcend local experience, seeding philosophical reflection across multiple societies simultaneously. Remarkably, the effects of contact were often magnified by the movement of a single individual or group. A wandering scholar, a caravan merchant, or a migrating artisan could transmit ideas that altered the course of history. Knowledge, once confined to a single city or culture, could spread, adapt, and evolve. In this way, civilizations began to function as nodes within a planetary scale network, a web of learning and memory stretching across continents. Yet with this network came vulnerability. Epidemics traveled along trade routes as swiftly as goods and ideas. The Justinian plague and later pandemics reveal that contact, while accelerating innovation, also amplified risk. Civilizations had to learn to navigate the duality of interconnection, opportunity and danger, growth and fragility, communication and contagion. In the balancing of these forces lies the continuing challenge of complex societies. In reflection, the expansion of human contact illustrates the profound truth that no civilization develops in isolation. The greatest leaps in technology, astronomy, agriculture, and governance arose not merely from individual insight, but from the interplay of ideas across distances and cultures. Civilization is a networked intelligence, and contact is the conduit that transforms local ingenuity into collective evolution. The echoes of trade caravans, diplomatic envoys, and migrating artisans resonate across millennia, forming the substratum upon which modern global knowledge is built. Ultimately, the history of civilizations in contact is a story of emergence. Complexity arises not only within cities, but between them. Knowledge, ritual, and memory spread across networks, producing patterns of innovation, resilience, and cultural synthesis. In this web of interaction, humans discovered a fundamental principle. Survival and growth depend on connection, observation, and the transmission of experience. Civilization, in its essence, is both local and planetary, a system capable of perceiving, recording, and adapting on a scale that transcends individual lifetimes. It is here, in the currents of trade and travel, in the migration of ideas and technology, that humanity glimpsed a higher-order pattern. Civilization was no longer merely a matter of survival or memory. It was an emergent phenomenon, a networked intelligence capable of shaping reality and, eventually, of understanding the cosmos itself. Contact became the mechanism through which knowledge accumulates, evolves, and persists, echoing the very principles that govern complex systems in nature. Civilizations in contact demonstrate that the story of human ingenuity is inseparable from interaction. Without exchange, knowledge stagnates. Without networks, innovation falters. The flowering of science, mathematics, art, and philosophy depend upon the pathways connecting minds and cultures. Humanity's understanding of itself and the universe emerges not only from individual insight, but from the dialogue between civilizations across continents, climates, and centuries. In the vast sweep of history, the interconnection of civilizations was the first step toward global consciousness. Through these networks, humans began to perceive patterns, both terrestrial and celestial, that no single culture could discern alone. Contact allowed memory to transcend isolation, imagination to reach beyond local horizons, and understanding to accumulate cumulatively. Civilization, in its earliest networks, became a reflection not only of human ingenuity, but of the potential for collective intelligence to shape knowledge, culture, and destiny. In this light, the exchange between civilizations is not a footnote, but a defining feature of humanity's ascent. It is the bridge between memory and innovation, between the local and the global, between the fleeting and the enduring. In every caravan, in every migratory journey, in every cultural encounter, the story of civilization expands, layer upon layer, until the echo of one mind can resonate across generations, continents, and eventually the cosmos itself. As humanity expanded across continents, observed the heavens, and constructed networks of knowledge, a profound realization began to take shape, one that challenges not only history, but our understanding of existence itself. Civilizations are astonishingly rare, fragile phenomena. Across billions of years of cosmic evolution, the emergence of intelligent, organized societies capable of sustained memory, innovation, and cooperation is exceptional. The story of civilization on Earth is not merely a chronicle of human achievement. It is a singular event in the silent vastness of time and space. Astronomers remind us that our planet is one of countless orbs orbiting ordinary stars in ordinary galaxies. Yet the precise conditions that allow life, let alone civilization, are extraordinary. Earth's orbit, rotation, atmosphere, magnetic field, and distance from the Sun converge in a delicate balance. The rise of complex life required billions of years of evolutionary experimentation, punctuated by mass extinctions and contingent accidents. The emergence of Homo sapiens, already improbable, was only the beginning of an even rarer outcome: the creation of cities, writing, trade networks, and scientific observation. Civilization is not inevitable. It is a cosmic fluke, fragile and fleeting, existing only in the briefest fraction of the universe's age. This rarity is illuminated by the Fermi paradox, which asks, if intelligent life is probable in the cosmos, why have we not yet observed evidence of it? The paradox forces reflection on the fragility and transience of civilizations. Across cosmic scales, the development of technological, self-sustaining societies may be rare because intelligence alone is insufficient. Survival, stability, resource management, and environmental stewardship must align perfectly. The shock of this realization is profound. Humanity's existence is not a natural outcome of evolution, but an extraordinary, improbable alignment of conditions across time, biology, and environment. The history of our own species emphasizes this fragility. The earliest urban civilizations, from Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley, flourished and collapsed. Disease, environmental shifts, warfare, and internal mismanagement repeatedly reshaped the trajectory of complex societies. Even in the modern era, technological advancement has not eliminated existential risk. Nuclear proliferation, climate change, pandemics, and ecological degradation reveal that civilization is perpetually perched on a knife's edge. Our survival is contingent, not guaranteed. Archaeological and paleoclimatic records reveal patterns of boom and collapse. The fall of the Maya, the abandonment of Angkor, the decline of the Harappan cities. These were not isolated events. They demonstrate the delicate interplay between human innovation and environmental limits. Civilization requires both adaptability and foresight, yet even small perturbations in resource availability, climate, or societal cohesion can initiate cascading failures. In this sense, history is not a linear march of progress, but a series of narrow pathways along which fragile civilizations have navigated ephemeral opportunity. From a philosophical perspective, the rarity of civilization forces reflection on the meaning and responsibility of existence. To recognize that intelligent life, capable of constructing knowledge networks, is uncommon in the universe, imposes an awareness of stewardship. Humanity is both a product of extraordinary chance and a custodian of potential continuity. The knowledge we inherit, from fire to memory to writing to cities, is a chain that links countless generations. Yet the chain is fragile. A single rupture could erase millennia of accumulated insight. The shock of civilizational rarity also extends to our perception of time and space. Our history, spanning mere millennia, is a brief flare within a cosmos billions of years old. The rise of agriculture, the invention of writing, the building of cities, and the exploration of the heavens occupy an infinitesimal fraction of cosmic time. From the vantage point of the universe, the emergence of civilization is both miraculous and transient, a flicker of organized intelligence against an immense, indifferent backdrop. Modern astrophysics deepens this reflection. Exoplanet surveys reveal that while Earth-sized planets are common, the convergence of conditions that produce complex, multicellular life appears rare. Even among planets capable of supporting life, the probability of developing sustained technological civilizations may be vanishingly small. The Drake equation, though speculative, formalizes the concept. The factors required for a civilization to emerge, endure, and communicate are restrictive. The shock of rarity is therefore not philosophical abstraction. It is grounded in empirical reasoning. Humanity may represent one of the few successful experiments in turning biology into organized, reflective intelligence. This rarity is mirrored within the species itself. Anthropologists highlight that for hundreds of thousands of years, Homo sapiens lived in fragile bands, dependent on fire, memory, and cooperation. Complex social organization was only possible after mastering symbolic communication and sustaining knowledge across generations. Civilization arose only after these improbable cognitive, technological, and environmental conditions converged. The probability of these elements aligning on any given world is extraordinarily low, highlighting both the miracle and precariousness of human achievement. Furthermore, civilization's rarity is entwined with fragility at multiple scales. Individual societies are vulnerable to collapse. Entire species can be extinguished. Planetary ecosystems are threatened by imbalance. From this perspective, the very fact that humanity exists today, capable of reflecting upon its own history and projecting into the cosmos, is a delicate equilibrium. Civilization is not a default outcome of evolution. It is a fleeting window in which intelligent life can observe, understand, and influence the universe. The emotional weight of this realization is profound. Recognition of civilizational rarity fosters both awe and responsibility. Every invention, every preserved memory, every network of cities is a testament to improbability. Every loss, destroyed libraries, fallen empires, vanished cultures, is a reminder of fragility. Humanity is a transient phenomenon, perched momentarily at the convergence of chance, intellect, and environment. The shock lies not only in rarity, but in the awareness that continuation is neither guaranteed nor effortless. Speculatively, one might extend this understanding to consider the broader cosmos as a network of potential civilizations. Rare flashes of intelligence may emerge, persist briefly, and vanish. Each civilization is a transient observer of the universe, capable of creating meaning, accumulating knowledge, and interpreting the cosmos, but only for a fleeting instant in cosmic time. From this vantage, Earth's civilization is a singular lens through which the universe glimpses itself. Humanity's achievement is remarkable not solely for its scale, but for its existence at all. This perspective reframes human history. The rise and fall of cities, empires, and networks is not simply local drama. It is part of a universal pattern in which intelligent life appears, interacts with its environment, and either persists or collapses. Civilization is rare not only because of environmental and biological constraints, but because sustaining knowledge, culture, and coordination requires exceptional foresight and adaptability. Each generation inherits both the miracle of accumulated wisdom and the responsibility to preserve it against fragility. Ultimately, the shock of civilizational rarity is a mirror. It forces reflection on the extraordinary chain of circumstances that brought humans from the mastery of fire, to memory, to writing, to cities, and now to a planetary consciousness capable of contemplating its own existence. Civilization is the improbable echo of countless contingent events, amplified through culture, observation, and innovation. Recognizing its rarity inspires humility, philosophical reflection, and a deep awareness of stewardship. Humanity is rare, fragile, and transient, yet capable of understanding itself and the universe. The shock of this realization illuminates the stakes of our existence. Survival, memory, and knowledge are not guaranteed. They are accomplishments against overwhelming odds. In every city, every manuscript, every observation of the stars, civilization asserts itself not as inevitable, but as extraordinary. In this fragile emergence, humanity glimpses the profound and precarious beauty of existence, a brief, luminous flare of intelligence in the silent expanse of time and space. Civilization is rare, yet conscious of its own rarity. It is within this awareness that humanity discovers both responsibility and possibility. To preserve knowledge, to understand the cosmos, and to reflect upon the delicate architecture of life that allowed it to emerge. In contemplating rarity, we perceive the miracle of continuity, the fragile triumph of intelligence, and the extraordinary chance that we exist at all. The story of civilization, when viewed through this lens, is not merely history. It is a meditation on improbability, a reflection on contingency, and a warning of fragility. Each stage, from fire to memory to writing to cities to networks of civilizations, represents a rare alignment of chance and intelligence. Humanity exists in the brief window in which the universe can observe itself through conscious life. The shock of rarity is thus both existential and poetic, a reminder that civilization, with all its complexity and fragility, is one of the cosmos' most remarkable experiments. From the flickering hearths of early settlements to the roaring furnaces of industrial metropolises, energy has always been civilization's silent architect. Fire, harnessed for warmth and cooking, became the first tool through which humans extended their agency over the world. Yet fire was only the beginning. The control, concentration, and deployment of energy, whether through human labor, domesticated animals, flowing water, or fossil fuels, has shaped the rise and fall of empires, the scope of human ambition, and the very architecture of civilization itself. Energy is both a measure and a determinant of power, a currency of civilization that flows through cities, infrastructure, and collective imagination. In early agrarian societies, energy was tangible and immediate. The labor of hundreds of individuals irrigating fields, building walls, and transporting goods sustained the city-state. Monumental architecture, from the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the pyramids of Giza, reflects the sheer mobilization of human energy over decades, even centuries. These structures were not merely symbolic. They were demonstrations of the capacity to coordinate, concentrate, and channel collective effort toward a single, enduring objective. Energy, in this sense, was the medium through which civilization made its mark upon the world. The scale and organization of energy use also determined the boundaries of power. Control of fertile land, rivers, and pastures dictated the capacity to feed populations and maintain armies. Hydraulic civilizations, such as those along the Nile and Tigris Euphrates, relied on the precise management of water, a form of stored and directed energy, to sustain cities. The administration of irrigation, the construction of canals, and the timing of floods became not only technical achievements, but instruments of political power. Civilization, at its core, is the capacity to organize energy across space and time. As societies expanded, energy began to diversify beyond human and animal labor. Wind, water, and eventually coal and oil transformed civilization's reach. The water wheel, for instance, allowed the mechanical conversion of flowing rivers into rotational motion, powering mills that could grind grain or forge metal. In medieval Europe, the concentration of water power enabled urban centers to flourish and trade networks to expand. Each technological innovation in energy management reshaped the landscape of possibility, amplifying human labor and accelerating the accumulation of knowledge. Empires at every scale are reflections of energy mastery. The Roman aqueducts channeled the lifeblood of water across vast territories, sustaining populations and industry. The Silk Road, powered indirectly by human and animal energy, enabled the diffusion of wealth, ideas, and culture. In each case, the reach of political, economic, and cultural influence was directly proportional to the capacity to harness and direct energy. Civilization is therefore inseparable from energy, its flow, storage, and deployment. Energy is the invisible framework upon which the architecture of empire rests. The control of energy also introduces fragility. Concentrated energy systems, while enabling growth and complexity, become points of vulnerability. Societies dependent on specific fuels or irrigation systems risk collapse when resources are disrupted. The fall of the Roman Empire, partially attributable to the strain of maintaining complex infrastructure and supply lines, illustrates the limits of energy management. Similarly, the agricultural collapse of the ancestral Puebloans in the American Southwest reveals how environmental constraints can undermine sophisticated energy networks, forcing adaptation, migration, or abandonment. Civilization thrives when energy is abundant, diversified, and efficiently managed. It falters when energy is scarce, mismanaged, or monopolized. Industrialization magnified the stakes. The discovery and exploitation of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and later natural gas, expanded civilizations' reach, accelerating technological, economic, and military power. Steam engines, electricity, and internal combustion engines transformed labor, transportation, and production. The energy density of fossil fuels dwarfed anything previously harnessed, creating new forms of social organization and global influence. Empires became planetary in scope, capable of projecting power across oceans and continents. Energy was no longer merely a local or regional concern. It became the axis of global civilization. Yet with this power comes responsibility and risk. The concentrated use of fossil fuels reshapes planetary systems. Atmospheric chemistry, climate, and ecological balance are affected by human-directed energy flows on unprecedented scales. The very empires that drew strength from energy abundance now confront the consequences of its externalities. Rising temperatures, altered weather patterns, and ecosystem collapse illustrate that civilization's energetic footprint is inseparable from planetary health. Energy is both a gift and a burden. Its mastery confers power, but also imposes accountability. Modern energy systems also reveal the interplay between technology and societal organization. Cities depend on electricity, transportation, and communication networks, each a complex web of energy flows. Infrastructure is a circulatory system, delivering the power required for urban life. Disruption of these flows, through natural disaster, technological failure, or conflict, can cascade through society, demonstrating that energy is not only a physical resource, but a medium of stability and vulnerability. Civilization is only as resilient as its capacity to manage these interconnected systems. From a scientific standpoint, the evolution of energy use parallels thermodynamic principles. Energy concentration and transformation are fundamental to sustaining complex systems, whether biological, ecological, or social. Civilizations are dissipative structures. They consume energy to maintain order, grow, and resist entropy. The rise of empires, the growth of cities, and the expansion of networks are all manifestations of energy flows organized to sustain complexity. In this context, energy is not merely a tool. It is the substrate of civilization itself. Speculatively, one might consider that human mastery of energy is a reflection of cognitive evolution. Fire, the first energy manipulated by humans, allowed cooking, warmth, protection, and social congregation. Each subsequent technological advance, from water wheels to electrical grids, represents an externalization of intelligence, the translation of knowledge and foresight into the manipulation of physical systems. Energy management is thus a mirror of consciousness, revealing the capacity to predict, plan, and control both environment and society. The philosophical dimension of energy and empire is profound. The rise of civilization is inseparable from the ethical and existential questions posed by energy use. How much energy is sustainable? How should power be distributed? What responsibilities arise from the ability to alter landscapes, climate, and human societies? These questions echo across history, from ancient irrigation projects to modern debates about fossil fuels, renewable energy, and planetary stewardship. Energy is simultaneously enabler, constraint, and mirror of moral agency. The history of energy also illuminates the fragility of empires. Collapse often follows energy mismanagement, whether through overexploitation, environmental degradation, or failure to adapt to scarcity. The cycles of rise and fall are not merely political or cultural phenomena. They are thermodynamic. Societies must balance energy input and expenditure to sustain complexity. Cities, armies, and economies are all expressions of energy concentrated and organized, and their longevity is bound to the efficiency and sustainability of these flows. In the contemporary era, humanity confronts unprecedented energetic choices. Fossil fuels provide immense power but threaten planetary equilibrium. Renewable energy offers sustainability but requires reorganization of infrastructure and social systems. Nuclear energy provides density but carries risk. Each choice reflects the continued interplay between mastery of energy and the persistence of civilization. The future of human societies will hinge upon the capacity to manage energy not only effectively but wisely, recognizing that the survival of civilization is inseparable from the flows and transformations of power it commands. Ultimately, energy is civilization's lifeblood, its medium, and its measure. From the controlled flames of prehistoric fires to the vast networks of electricity and fuel that sustain modern metropolises, energy shapes the possibilities, fragilities, and ambitions of human societies. Empires rise and fall on the ability to concentrate, distribute, and adapt energy. Cities emerge, grow, and collapse as a function of energy flows. Knowledge, memory, and innovation are all sustained, amplified, and transmitted through the medium of power. The story of energy and empire is therefore a story of civilization itself. It is the story of humanity's ability to harness natural forces, to organize collective labor, to build networks of power, and to project influence across time and space. It is also a story of fragility, contingency, and responsibility. The management of energy determines not only the rise of empires, but the survival of societies, the preservation of knowledge, and the potential continuity of human civilization in the face of environmental, technological, and existential challenges. In the grand sweep of history, energy is both the enabler and the arbiter of civilization. It is the current that carries ambition, the force that shapes cities, the lens through which empires measure their reach. Without energy, the structures of human achievement, writing, cities, trade, knowledge, collapse into entropy. With energy, civilization extends its influence across landscapes and generations, leaving traces that speak of ingenuity, foresight, and the capacity to shape reality itself. Thus, the mastery of energy is the pulse of human civilization. It is the invisible scaffold upon which memory, power, and complexity are built. It is the medium through which ambition becomes architecture, labor becomes legacy, and intellect becomes influence. In understanding energy, humanity glimpses the mechanism through which civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually confront their own fragility, a revelation that is both scientific and profoundly philosophical. Civilization is, at its core, a system of energy in motion. Every city, empire, and network is a testament to humanity's ability to concentrate, direct, and adapt this fundamental resource. Energy is both the canvas and the paint, the foundation and the structure. It is the mirror of our collective intelligence, the measure of our power, and the shadow of our vulnerability. In the interplay of energy and empire, civilization finds both its potential and its peril, illuminating the extraordinary complexity of human endeavor across time and space. Civilization, at its most profound, is a structure not merely of stone or metal, but of thought itself. From the earliest cuneiform tablets in Mesopotamia to the monumental libraries of Alexandria and Timbuktu, humanity has sought to externalize memory, to give form and permanence to the ephemeral currents of knowledge. Knowledge became architecture, not in the literal sense of buildings alone, but as an edifice constructed from ideas, methods, and networks, a framework capable of sustaining thought, preserving culture, and projecting understanding across generations. In the earliest cities, knowledge was embedded in the urban fabric. Streets, temples, and palaces were designed not only for function, but to encode meaning. The orientation of structures, the placement of monuments, the scale of public spaces, all reflected a civilization's understanding of order, hierarchy, and cosmology. Each stone and street served as a mnemonic device, a spatial manifestation of social, religious, and scientific knowledge. Early societies recognized that permanence requires structure, and structure requires foresight. Knowledge, once abstract, needed a scaffold, architecture both literal and conceptual. Writing was the first profound leap in this architecture. Symbols carved into clay or inked onto papyrus transformed memory into a durable, transportable medium. Cuneiform, hieroglyphs, and later alphabets allowed humans to record laws, astronomical observations, trade transactions, and mythologies. Knowledge could now be accumulated, compared, and transmitted beyond the limitations of oral memory. Each tablet, scroll, or inscription was a brick in an intellectual edifice, a tangible extension of human cognition. Civilization was beginning to think at a scale beyond any single mind. Libraries became the most explicit manifestations of this principle. In Alexandria, scholars curated scrolls detailing the mathematics of Euclid, the philosophy of Plato, and the anatomy of Galen. Knowledge was not passive. It was organized, categorized, and systematized. These repositories were not only storage spaces. They were laboratories for thought, nodes and networks of inquiry, and sanctuaries for memory against the relentless decay of time. The architecture of knowledge was thus both protective and generative. It preserved the past while enabling the emergence of new understanding. Beyond physical structures, the architecture of knowledge extended into systems, disciplines, and methodologies. Astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and engineering evolved as frameworks to observe, predict, and manipulate the natural world. The stars were mapped not only in the sky, but on clay tablets. Rivers and topography were charted to guide irrigation and trade. Knowledge became recursive. The act of structuring understanding enabled further insight. Civilization, in essence, was creating a cognitive scaffold, a framework through which observation could be amplified, analyzed, and transmitted. The metaphor of architecture is particularly apt because knowledge, like a building, requires foundations, support, and interconnection. Foundational concepts, laws of mathematics, principles of logic, empirical observation, serve as the bedrock upon which further understanding is constructed. Interdisciplinary connections act as beams and arches, distributing intellectual weight across networks of inquiry. Gaps, errors, or collapses in this structure can compromise the integrity of the entire system. In this light, education, mentorship, and documentation are not mere societal functions. They are the engineering of civilization's mind. Science, perhaps more than any other human endeavor, exemplifies knowledge as architecture. Observations of planetary motion, gravitational theory, and thermodynamics are structured hierarchically. Each discovery builds upon prior insight, forming a lattice of understanding. Newton, following Copernicus and Kepler, established frameworks that would later be expanded by Einstein, Hawking, and countless others. Knowledge is cumulative. The intellectual skyscraper of civilization rises floor by floor, dependent on foundations laid in distant eras and places. Speculatively, one might consider that cities themselves are manifestations of knowledge as architecture. Urban planning encodes information about social organization, resource distribution, and environmental adaptation. Roads map logistical understanding. Public spaces reflect civic priorities. Walls and fortifications embody strategic knowledge. In every city, knowledge is built into the spatial and material configuration, transforming lived experience into a repository of collective intelligence. Civilization externalizes cognition in the very structures it inhabits. The fragility of this architecture is evident throughout history. Fires, invasions, and neglect have destroyed libraries, archives, and knowledge systems repeatedly. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, the sack of Baghdad, and the destruction of cultural repositories remind us that civilization's memory is never guaranteed. Yet, even in destruction, the principles of knowledge architecture endure. Scholars reconstruct, adapt, and transmit understanding, revealing a persistent impulse to preserve the cognitive scaffolding that supports culture and civilization. Technology amplifies this principle exponentially. Printing presses, typewriters, computers, and digital networks have transformed the capacity to store, manipulate, and disseminate information. Knowledge is no longer confined to individual memory or physical architecture. It circulates globally, interconnected, layered, and resilient. Yet the underlying principles remain the same. To endure, knowledge must be structured, organized, and accessible. Civilization continues to build its intellectual edifice, each innovation a new floor, corridor, or bridge in an ever-expanding complex of understanding. Philosophically, the concept of knowledge as architecture suggests a profound interdependence between cognition, culture, and survival. Civilizations rise not merely through population growth, agriculture, or conquest, but through the capacity to organize, preserve, and transmit insight. Knowledge is a form of scaffolding that stabilizes society, enabling coordination, innovation, and resilience. Its absence or collapse leaves civilizations vulnerable. Its presence allows humans to transcend immediate constraints, projecting influence across generations and geographies. At the cosmic scale, knowledge as architecture becomes even more consequential. Astronomy, physics, and mathematics provide frameworks through which humanity observes, interprets, and interacts with the universe. From mapping the motions of planets to theorizing the expansion of space-time, civilization constructs mental structures that extend human perception beyond the limits of the senses. The architecture of knowledge is a bridge between the earthbound mind and the cosmos, allowing civilizations to participate, however fleetingly, in the comprehension of universal phenomena. Emergent technologies, artificial intelligence, data networks, and computational modeling suggest a new layer in this architecture. Knowledge is becoming self-organizing, capable of processing, connecting, and predicting on scales unimaginable to previous generations. Yet even these systems reflect the same principles as ancient libraries: foundations of logic and empirical observation, networks of interconnection, and mechanisms to preserve, transmit, and interpret information. Civilization's cognitive scaffolding evolves, but the underlying architecture, the deliberate structuring of insight, remains central. Speculatively, one could argue that the ultimate trajectory of knowledge as architecture is the transformation of civilization itself into a conscious, reflective system. Cities, institutions, and digital networks collectively form a metastructure capable of learning, adapting, and preserving wisdom across time and space. Civilization externalizes memory, cognition, and observation, creating a system that is, in effect, an extended mind. Human thought, once limited to individual neurons and memories, becomes embedded in a persistent, global intellectual organism. The reflective, philosophical dimension of this principle is profound. Knowledge as architecture implies that civilization's continuity is inseparable from the structures that encode, transmit, and preserve insight. Each tablet, book, archive, and server is a brick in a fragile edifice. Each generation adds to, reinforces, or reshapes this structure, conscious or not, participating in a continuum that extends beyond individual lifespans. Civilization is both temporal and material, a scaffolding that supports thought, culture, and innovation across millennia. The fragility and potential of knowledge as architecture are inseparable. Civilizations can flourish for centuries by building, connecting, and preserving insight. They can collapse when memory is lost, destroyed, or neglected. This duality, resilience through structure, vulnerability through dependence, is a recurring theme in history. From clay tablets in Mesopotamia to the cloud servers of today, the story of human thought is one of careful construction, maintenance, and transmission. Knowledge, when structured as architecture, enables civilization to rise above immediate survival, to dream, to imagine, and to understand. Ultimately, knowledge as architecture is civilization's most enduring achievement. Fire, memory, writing, cities, trade networks, and energy flows all converge to create a scaffolding capable of sustaining collective understanding. Each innovation, each observation, each insight is a structural element in a vast, interconnected cognitive edifice. Civilization's persistence depends not solely on power or resources, but on the integrity of this architecture, its capacity to transmit memory, to encode innovation, and to extend human thought across generations and space. In the end, humanity's buildings, libraries, and digital networks are reflections of a deeper truth. Civilization is constructed thought. Each wall, each scroll, each server is a vessel of memory, a bridge between generations, and a framework through which understanding is sustained and expanded. Knowledge, organized, preserved, and transmitted, becomes architecture, an enduring scaffolding for consciousness, reflection, and creativity. Civilization itself is, in this light, an intellectual monument, a structure of thought spanning time, a testament to humanity's capacity to externalize, preserve, and project understanding into the future. Civilization is not merely a collection of cities, empires, or technologies. It is a web of ideas, a lattice of shared knowledge stretching across continents and generations. From the earliest trade routes to the digital highways of the modern era, humanity has discovered that the power of civilization is amplified when minds are connected. Networks of thought, ephemeral yet tangible, constitute the nervous system of collective intelligence, a system that allows civilizations to accumulate insight, preserve memory, and extend influence far beyond the reach of any single city or nation. In antiquity, these networks were formed through the slow but persistent movement of people, goods, and ideas. Merchants traversed deserts and oceans, carrying not only commodities but also techniques, philosophies, and stories. The Silk Road was more than a trade route. It was a circulatory system of cognition. Astronomical observations, mathematical concepts, medicinal practices, and religious philosophies traveled alongside silk and spices, embedding knowledge in distant societies. A single caravan could carry the seeds of innovation across thousands of miles, planting new possibilities in distant minds. Knowledge networks were not confined to material transfer. Scholars and scribes became vectors of ideas, translating texts, preserving manuscripts, and disseminating discoveries. The libraries of Alexandria, Baghdad, and Timbuktu functioned as hubs within this global lattice, concentrating and redistributing information across vast regions. Scientific observation, philosophical discourse, and literary thought were exchanged, often reshaping entire civilizations. The transmission of knowledge transformed local understanding into collective insight, allowing humanity to learn from the successes and failures of distant societies. These networks reveal a fundamental principle: connectivity amplifies intelligence. Individual minds are limited by experience and memory, But when linked through communication, observation, and shared documentation, cognitive capacity expands. Mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy evolved not in isolation, but through dialogue between distant centers of learning. The accumulation of incremental discoveries, observations of stars, measurements of rivers, or calculations of trade, enabled civilizations to build models of the world more complex than any single mind could conceive. Networks of thought thus became the architecture of collective consciousness. The invention of writing accelerated this process exponentially. Symbols allowed for precise transmission of abstract concepts, from accounting ledgers to philosophical treatises. Knowledge could be revisited, critiqued, and extended long after the original author had passed. The ability to store and organize thought created a temporal bridge, linking past generations to the present and future. Scholars were no longer bound by immediate perception. They could engage with ideas across centuries, contributing to a cumulative intellectual enterprise. Civilization, in this sense, was becoming a distributed, enduring intelligence. The expansion of networks also highlights the interdependence of civilizations. Ideas rarely arise in isolation. They are forged through the interplay of observation, critique, and adaptation. Babylonian mathematics informed Greek astronomy, which later shaped Islamic scholarship, ultimately influencing European Renaissance thought. The spread of numeral systems, architectural techniques, and scientific methods demonstrates that intellectual progress is often a collaborative, cross-cultural phenomenon. Civilization is, at its core, a networked phenomenon, thriving on exchange, feedback, and synthesis. Trade, migration, and conquest further reinforce these connections. While the movement of ideas was often accidental, carried on the heels of soldiers, traders, or explorers, it was transformative. Epidemics, migrations, and environmental shifts acted as agents of diffusion, forcing societies to adapt, adopt, or innovate. Networks of thought were thus intertwined with the broader dynamics of human existence: survival, cooperation, and competition. Knowledge was not static. It was dynamic, evolving through interaction, challenge, and synthesis. The philosophical implications of global networks are profound. Collective intelligence allows civilizations to perceive patterns, anticipate consequences, and act on scales impossible for isolated communities. Astronomy, for instance, progressed because observations made in one region could be corroborated and extended elsewhere. Calendars, navigational methods, and engineering techniques improved through iterative refinement across space and time. Civilization became not merely a social or material phenomenon, but a cognitive system capable of reasoning collectively about the natural world. Modern analogs make this principle strikingly visible. The internet, digital archives, and scientific databases constitute a global nervous system, linking millions of minds and trillions of data points. Ideas, research, and observations traverse the planet instantaneously, enabling collaborative innovation on unprecedented scales. The structure of modern science mirrors ancient principles. Knowledge must be stored, organized, and shared. Networks of thought have become formalized, scalable, and self-reinforcing. Yet they operate on the same foundational principle that guided scribes, merchants, and scholars for millennia. Connectivity multiplies intelligence. Yet networks of thought are also vulnerable. Knowledge can be lost through neglect, censorship, or catastrophe. Digital storage is resilient but not invulnerable. Ancient manuscripts demonstrate that even small lapses in preservation can erase centuries of insight. The fragility of civilization is mirrored in the fragility of its cognitive infrastructure. Maintaining, curating, and transmitting knowledge is not a passive act. It requires vigilance, foresight, and collective commitment. Networks, no matter how extensive, demand care and participation to persist. The evolution of these networks also raises questions about the nature of intelligence itself. Is consciousness merely an individual phenomenon, or can it be understood as emergent from interconnected systems? Civilization suggests the latter. Distributed cognition, whereby knowledge is stored, accessed, and transmitted collectively, allows intelligence to exceed individual capacities. A network of thinkers, observers, and recorders, spanning generations and continents, functions as a form of extended mind, capable of modeling, predicting, and interacting with the world in ways unattainable for any isolated person. Speculatively, one might envision civilization as a single organism of thought. Each city, library, and digital hub is akin to a neuron. Each scholar, engineer, or observer, a synapse transmitting information. Ideas pulse through this system, reinforced by repetition, refinement, and integration. Failures and collapses, fires, wars, lost manuscripts, are akin to lesions, weakening the network but rarely destroying it entirely. Civilization persists because these networks are redundant, adaptive, and cumulative, reflecting the resilience of distributed intelligence. Historically, the expansion of networks has been both liberating and constraining. While connectivity allows knowledge to accumulate and circulate, it also imposes norms, hierarchies, and standards. Mathematical methods, philosophical frameworks, and scientific paradigms spread precisely because networks enforce continuity and validation. These networks simultaneously preserve diversity and constrain deviation. Innovation thrives within and at the edges of this tension, as new ideas are tested against established knowledge and refined through iteration. Civilization's cognitive architecture is a dynamic balance of structure and flexibility. From the vantage of the cosmos, global networks of thought are a remarkable achievement. Few species, on Earth or elsewhere in the universe as we know it, have constructed persistent systems capable of storing, transmitting, and integrating knowledge across generations and geographies. This achievement transforms mere survival into reflection, enabling humans to contemplate stars, galaxies, and fundamental laws of nature. Civilization becomes both participant and observer in the universe, mediated through networks of thought that transcend immediate mortality and geography. Yet, the very power of these networks introduces ethical and existential responsibility. Knowledge is no longer a private possession. It is part of a collective inheritance. Decisions made today about energy, environment, technology, or governance propagate through these cognitive channels, affecting not only contemporary societies but future generations. The durability and accessibility of knowledge determine the resilience of civilization itself. To construct and maintain these networks is to participate in the ongoing creation of human potential. In reflection, the history of global networks of thought reveals a central truth. Civilization is sustained not merely by population, territory, or technology, but by the deliberate structuring and dissemination of knowledge. Ideas are the building blocks, observation, the scaffolding, and communication, the connective tissue. Networks of thought allow civilizations to rise above local constraints, to observe the cosmos, and to collaborate across time and space. They are both the infrastructure and the lifeblood of human progress. Speculatively, one might consider that the future of civilization depends increasingly on these networks. As data, computation, and artificial intelligence become integrated into collective cognition, humanity may evolve into a meta-intelligence, where individual minds and machine systems form a unified, adaptive cognitive architecture. Knowledge, once fragile and localized, becomes persistent, scalable, and increasingly capable of modeling complex systems, planetary, biological, and cosmic. Civilization's potential is inseparable from the robustness and reach of these networks. Ultimately, global networks of thought are civilization's nervous system, memory, and vessel of imagination. From the Silk Road to the cloud server, from scribes to digital archivists, humans have discovered that survival, innovation, and understanding are amplified through connectivity. Ideas propagate, adapt, and accumulate, creating a lattice of intelligence that extends across space, time, and generations. Civilization, in this view, is not merely the sum of its cities, empires, or technologies. It is the emergent intelligence of interconnected minds, a luminous web of thoughts spanning the globe. The story of civilization, then, is the story of connectivity. Knowledge, once confined to individual memory or local archives, becomes durable and generative only when shared. Networks of thought transform transient insight into enduring legacy, ephemeral observation into structured understanding, and local cognition into planetary-scale intelligence. Humanity's capacity to think collectively, to preserve, transmit, and integrate knowledge is both a scientific marvel and a philosophical revelation. Civilization is a networked mind, awake across centuries, continents, and the expanding horizon of understanding. Civilization, in its essence, is a trajectory of expansion, of knowledge, of energy, of influence. From the earliest settlements to the global networks of today, human societies have consistently sought to grow, to build, to explore, to accumulate. Yet this expansion is neither infinite nor unchallenged. Every layer of complexity, every technological advancement, and every resource acquired carries with it inherent constraints. Growth, while a measure of achievement, is bound by the physical, environmental, and systemic limits of the world it inhabits. The natural world imposes first and foremost a boundary to expansion. Soil fertility, water availability, climate stability, and biodiversity define the parameters within which societies can sustain themselves. Ancient civilizations illustrate this principle vividly. The collapse of the Mesopotamian city-states, the decline of the Maya, and the contraction of early agrarian societies in the Indus Valley were not the result of moral failure or external conquest alone. They reflected the exhaustion of environmental capacities, the overextension of energy flows, and the delicate balance between growth and ecological sustainability. Civilization grows, but it grows within a framework dictated by nature. Energy availability is a second constraint. Every technological advance and every population increase demands energy, whether in the form of food, labor, or fuel. Societies thrive when energy flows are sufficient and accessible. They falter when energy becomes scarce or mismanaged. Pre-industrial societies depended on human and animal labor, wood, and localized resources. Industrial societies expanded using coal, oil, and electricity. In each case, limits, whether physical depletion, logistical barriers, or environmental degradation, emerged as growth intensified. Civilizations are, therefore, inextricably tied to the resources that fuel their expansion. The concept of systemic complexity introduces an additional, often less visible, limit. As societies grow, they accumulate interdependent infrastructures, institutions, and technologies. These layers, while enabling greater capability, also create fragility. A single disruption, drought, epidemic, supply chain failure, can cascade through complex networks, threatening stability. Historical collapses reveal this dynamic. The Roman Empire's overstretched logistics, the Ming Dynasty's overextended governance, and modern urban centers' reliance on tightly coupled energy and information networks all demonstrate that growth intensifies vulnerability. Civilization's expansion is a measure not only of ambition, but of accumulated risk. Technological innovation has historically deferred these limits, enabling societies to extract more energy, increase efficiency, and manage resources more effectively. Irrigation systems, metallurgy, industrial machinery, and digital networks all represent strategies for surpassing immediate constraints. Yet even the most advanced technologies encounter boundary conditions. Finite resources, ecological feedback, and physical laws impose ceilings. Solar panels, wind turbines, and nuclear reactors expand energy availability, but they too rely on materials, infrastructure, and knowledge systems that are themselves limited. Growth can be amplified, but it cannot escape the context of the world in which it operates. Population dynamics exemplify the tension between growth and limits. Increasing numbers of people require proportionally more energy, food, water, and space. Agricultural innovations, trade networks, and urban planning temporarily reconcile these demands. Yet, demographic expansion inevitably pressures environmental and social systems. Historical examples, the overpopulation and resource depletion preceding the collapse of Easter Island, or the strain on arable land in early Mesopotamia, illustrate that population growth is both a driver of progress and a stressor on sustainability. Civilization's trajectory is thus a negotiation between human ambition and planetary capacity. Economic and social structures further mediate the limits of growth. Distribution of resources, governance systems, and trade networks determine the efficiency and resilience of energy utilization. Inequities, corruption, or mismanagement can exacerbate scarcity, triggering crises even when aggregate resources might suffice. Conversely, knowledge-driven coordination can optimize flows, extend capacities, and mitigate constraints. Civilization's limits are therefore not solely environmental. They're also cognitive, institutional, and organizational. The interface between human decision-making and physical reality defines the boundary conditions for expansion. The global perspective amplifies these considerations. Modern civilization is interconnected at planetary scales. Energy, food, materials, and information circulate across continents, creating networks that enable unprecedented growth while simultaneously embedding systemic vulnerability. Climate change, biodiversity loss, ocean acidification, and freshwater depletion are not local problems. They are emergent properties of global-scale expansion. Civilization's limits are now planetary in scope. Growth beyond the Earth's capacity introduces risks that affect every society simultaneously. Expansion, when unchecked, confronts the ecological and physical constraints of the entire biosphere. Scientific modeling offers insight into the interplay of growth and limitation. Systems analysis, ecological modeling, and energy accounting demonstrate that exponential expansion in population, consumption, or technological complexity cannot continue indefinitely within finite boundaries. The principle of diminishing returns becomes evident. Each increment of growth demands increasingly disproportionate energy, resources, and organizational effort. Beyond a threshold, the effort required to sustain growth may outweigh its benefits, and civilization faces the possibility of contraction, stagnation, or collapse. Limits are not merely theoretical. They are observable in resource depletion, ecological strain, and social stress. Speculatively, civilization's response to these limits may define its longevity. Adaptive strategies, renewable energy, circular economies, conservation practices, and technological innovation extend the horizon of sustainable growth. Knowledge, applied judiciously, allows societies to transcend immediate constraints while respecting systemic boundaries. Civilizations that fail to recognize or adapt to limits risk overshoot, consuming faster than replenishment, destabilizing ecosystems, and undermining their own survival. The balance between expansion and constraint is not static. It is a dynamic negotiation requiring foresight, discipline, and collective insight. Philosophically, the concept of limits challenges conventional notions of progress. Growth has been synonymous with success, yet the most resilient civilizations are those that recognize thresholds, adapt to constraints, and harmonize ambition with sustainability. Limit recognition does not imply stagnation. Rather, it reframes progress as efficiency, resilience, and adaptability rather than simple accumulation. Civilization thrives not when it expands without bounds, but when it navigates the tension between aspiration and reality, creativity and conservation. The temporal dimension of limits is also profound. Civilizations exist on scales of decades to millennia, yet they're subject to forces, geological, climatic, astronomical, that operate on much longer timelines. Ice ages, solar variability, tectonic shifts, and asteroid impacts define ultimate boundaries that human ingenuity cannot circumvent entirely. Survival depends upon anticipating and adapting to these temporal limits, integrating energy flows and knowledge systems to buffer against long-term disruptions. Growth is always provisional, contingent upon foresight, resilience, and the capacity to respond to slow-moving but inevitable forces. In reflection, the limits of growth are central to the story of civilization. Every achievement, from agriculture to industrialization to global networks, is constrained by energy availability, resource capacity, and systemic complexity. Recognition of these limits is not defeat but understanding, providing the conditions for deliberate, resilient, and sustainable development. Civilization thrives not through unbounded expansion, but through the delicate, conscious negotiation of boundaries, balancing ambition with foresight, capability with responsibility, and potential with comprehension.